What is going on, Pretender here, back with another Honkai Star video, and today I'm here with my first impressions of Anaxa. It's been roughly a day and a half as I am recording this video since Anaxa did release on the NA server specifically, and I have been doing nothing but using him pretty much since he did release. Been using him a bunch in MLC especially, used him a lot in Pure Fiction, Apocalyptic Shadow, even Divergent Universe. But different ways, tested different builds at E0, E1, E2, E0, S0, I've used mine at E6 obviously. And so I'm going to be doing like my other first impression videos talking about like the lead up, what I thought and so on. And now with him being released, what I do think overall. So yeah, before I get into the video, if you guys find this video helpful or enjoyable in any way, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new and haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for future videos like this along with all other types of Star content, and let's just get into it. So leading up to Anaxa release, so when the info around his kit was going around on what he was gonna do, what did I think about then? So I did think he was going to be relatively strong, but from when he did release, he seemed a tad bit too undertuned. I thought he would still perform fine from when we did get, like, it was really cool that, like, yo, this new character is going to be able to implant every weakness. He has debuffs, he's able to do more damage to them, he has innate defense ignore. So I knew even though he seemed a bit undertuned when it came to his multipliers and such, I thought like the way he worked, especially with that extra skill you can get, his damage output was going to be pretty fine. My biggest issue with him was it really did seem like vertical investment on him was pretty bad, as opposed to, you know, he was releasing with Castrus, who has insane vertical investment, which the vertical investment between Castrus is a lot bigger than the vertical investment between Anaxa. Anaxa still can get some cool stuff from vertical investment, but Castrus objectively gets better stuff. At least when we look at the strengths of E2 and such, you know, some of Castrus' stuff is kind of whatever, but a lot of Anaxa stuff is also whatever at the same time. But yeah, seeing how he was sort of undertuned-ish when it came to his kit, when it came to multiplier specifically, and you know, the S1 being alright, his dupes being okay, I didn't really know if he was going to be as good as I thought. And Anaxa was the Amphoreus character I was most hyped for. Ever since the reveal, you know, at the beginning when they revealed every character before we got the drip marketing and such, he was the one I was looking forward to most. And then obviously it took a while for him to actually appear in the story. It took till the 3.1 for him to really be mentioned at all, and then in 3.2, you know, it's his patch, so he was kind of there. His whole thing played out and he's already gone, you know, as fast as he came, he went. But throughout the entire time he was up there in the story, he was so cool. He's actually now my second favorite character in Starl, number one still being far and none Aventurine. But from every time he was in the story, everything he was doing, it was so cool. And then his final scene at the end where he practically just ripped out his heart was the coolest thing ever, dude. He was so cool. But yeah, talking more about his kit again. So yeah, as the versions went on and we got more beta tests, you know, the more and more we got, the more updates, the buffs, the nerfs and such. The vertical investment on him really didn't change too much, so that was a bit unfortunate. They did change his icon where they removed the crit and added something else that I can't remember on the top of my head was. I don't actually exactly remember what it was, but I remember they did remove crit rate off his Lycon. But I do remember originally I thought removing the crit rate made him a bit more iffy to build, but then I saw all the calcs and such and I saw that the change was actually better for him, so I was no longer complaining. And I honestly didn't think his Lycon was that good until I found out you could straight up have 2-turn ultimate with it, and I was like, alright, well, never mind, I took back what I said. But yeah, so by the time we did get to around the end of his beta phase where his kit was practically finalized, you know, he got that bit of a hotfix at the end where he had his multipliers reduced. I was kind of sad to see that. As someone who's super hyped for him, I was sad to see that he did get his multipliers reduced, but now that I've seen his numbers in game even with them slightly reduced, I can see why, because if his numbers were still that high, I can imagine how broken he'd be. But yeah, I managed to test him during some period of those with him at E0, E0S1, E1S1, and E2S1. And I could say E0S1 specifically, he was perfect. Like the dupes that he does get early on, his E1's kind of whatever, but his E2 is good with how you can practically get an instant second skill off. So his E2 was good, but you know, his E1 kind of just being a stepping stone to it was also there. But didn't feel like the biggest need, you know, you really don't need it, and I still think that's very true, you don't need it. E0S1 Anaxa is perfect. He does everything that he wants to do at E0S1. He just performs perfect. His damage output is really good. With his S1, you still get the turn 2 ultimate. With his Lycon, you get that 2-turn ultimate. Have these debuffs onto them very frequently. You get very, very good damage output. Very frequently get the second skill. So either S1 as a main DPS or the Herda sub-DPS or whatever sub-DPS, he does really good. Him without his Lycon is still fine, but it is a lot worse than I expected. Not saying it's bad, again, I said it was pretty good still. But it honestly feels pretty bad not being able to 2-turn ult consistently without, maybe some RNG in play, like maybe Whoop ult doesn't go off so you can't get it, maybe you don't get hit enough, or you have to sacrifice the attack percent rope to run energy regen, which I personally don't like doing. I know it still works in a lot of cases and makes it a lot less RNG reliant in battle if you don't have his S1, but I don't like the drop off, especially because Anaxa is so attack deprived already. So not actually getting that is kind of sad. But even at E0 S0, his damage output, if you're able to have everything play correctly, is good. Him as a sub DPS is still good. You're still able to consistently apply those weakness implants and debuffs. Still does good and solid damage, especially because there's other Lycon options. Like, he has a bunch of other options you can use. Even if you have the Herda Lycon just sitting there for some reason, that works great on him. The free to play from the Star World event is perfect for him as well. He still has a lot of options that do good justice for his damage. It's just the fact that you kind of miss out on the 2-turn guaranteed ultimate, which can be a bit annoying just because, the more debuffs you have on them, the full defense ignore effect, once you have 5, you get the extra skill, do more damage to them. So the bit of downtime you can have, or if you don't have RNG work too well where you don't get hit enough, or you're sacking the attack percent rope and running ER rope is just pretty sad to do. But yeah, at E0 S0, a little weaker than I thought, but still is good. E0 S1, perfect unit. And now the bit I did use him at E1 S1, it's really not that big of a difference. The extra skill you can get, because you get a skill point back, I guess, is okay. It's not really anything. And the 16% defense shred is not really worth all the pulls for. His Lycon also gives a bit of defense shred, so his actual E1 isn't worth too much. But if you have a bunch of other sources of defense shred or stacks, or just, defense ignore, it becomes a lot stronger. Which is why in a lot of cases, if you do have the Genius set and you're running maybe Sunday E1 with him and he's a hyper carry, you have the E1 and you have the S1 as well, where you get 2 different sources of defense shred. You have the defense ignore in his kit, you have the defense ignore from the Genius set, then the defense shred does actually be pretty noticeable. And that's like the only time I really think the E1 is good. If you just maybe, let's say, went for the E1 before the S1 for some reason, or you got a 2-in-1 on an Anaxa or something, and you have that E1, it's nice to have. It's just extra 16% defense shred, but let's say you're running him as a sub DPS with the Herda, you're really not going to feel it that much. It's only 16% on its own. And then for his own personal damage with the defense shred plus the defense ignore, it is noticeable, but it's honestly not really worth it. But yeah, on a dupe on its own, if we just look at him and then the dupe, it's not that crazy. And then E2, on the other hand, really, really good dupe. It actually allows him to get a instant turn 1 actual double skill, because he can implant a weakness with this technique going into battle, and now this E2 lets him apply a weakness every time an enemy does enter the field. So you are actually able to have an instant second skill go off when it is his turn. So his E2 is actually very much noticeable, and on top of that, he also lowers everyone's all-type res by 20%. So not only is that good for his damage, that's also going to be good for everyone else's damage as well. And then it kind of makes more of a stepping stone of the E1 more noticeable, because you'll have the E1 obviously if you have E2. So having the defense shred plus the outside res lower is also pretty nice overall. Whether he's a main DPS, it's going to benefit his damage. If you're running him with Chibi, it's going to benefit her damage. Or if you're running him as a sub DPS, it's going to benefit your main DPS a lot as well. But yeah, I didn't really think the dupes were something you would want to go out your way for and use all these pulls for it. He already worked completely fine at E0 S1. Honestly, best stopping point is just there. But if you really liked Anaxa and you went for the E2, or maybe you got lucky, then it's going to be noticeable. It's still really good when you do have that E2. E1 on the other hand by itself, again, not really that crazy, but then E2, it is very much noticeable. And testing him at E2 was noticeable for the difference, but it wasn't something you would, again, go crazy over. I wouldn't personally do it if I wasn't like a big Anaxa fan. If Anaxa was a character I liked, but he was not my favorite, I probably also would have just stopped at E0 S1. Because his E2 is, again, still good, but it's like not other E2s in this game. Like, look at Acheron's E2, look at Danheng IL's E2, Castrus's E2, Firefly's E2. Like, there's a lot of E2s that are significantly better, but his is still definitely good. But yeah, testing all the levels, E0 S0, as I mentioned, not the craziest, but still was fine. E0 S1, really fun, really strong as well. E1 S1, it's not really that much of a difference from E0 S1. And then E2 S1, definitely was noticeable, but again, not super crazy. And then I did not test him at E4 S1 because that would be weird. I just tested him at E6 S1, and now mine is also at E6 S1, and oh my actual god. We already know how stupid it is to scale off original damage, so the damage dealt of him becoming 130% of original damage is super stupid on its own. On top of that, you do get the additive bonus that his erudition effect in his trace is just triggered directly and doesn't actually depend on erudition amounts on the team. So if you have 2, you give the 50% damage out to everyone. If you have just Anaxa, you get that 140% crit damage for him. Now with the E6, he gets the 140% crit damage and gives everyone 50% damage dealt, which also includes himself. That's so good just because it also, again, applies to him, which for him, it's not the craziest. He already has a bunch of sources of damage. But if you have someone like Chibi on the team, or if you're running him as a sub-DPS, which if he's E6 and you're running him as a sub-DPS, I wonder why. Just whatever on the team that does some damage, it will benefit them, which is why it's just so nice to have, and it also benefits him. And his damage absolutely skyrocketed. It's crazy. Plus, the E4 is also a good stepping stone to it just because you get 60% up to attack, which is great for him. As I did mention, he is very attack deprived. So it is good that he does have a Eidolon that does give him a pretty big attack increase. But yeah, that E4 on its own is good, but it's mainly a stepping stone getting up to E6, and then E6 is super strong, of course, as it's an E6, I'd hope it's strong. But yeah, his damage absolutely skyrocketed. The amount of numbers he did, you know, just hitting millions per skill, the double skill so you get multiple millions, the ultimate hitting super goddamn hard as well. It's so goddamn satisfying. And you combine this, I actually haven't even talked about this yet, but how fun do I think he is? At E0S1 and all the early levels that I tested him as, he was one of, if not my favorite DPS to use in the game. Not even with the E6, just at E0S1, he was one of, if not my favorite DPS. I don't know what it is. He's just so goddamn fun. The SFX with the skill is so satisfying. The double skill, his ultimate is super clean, implanting every weakness and just going crazy. He is so fun to use in every single mode. Shreds through MLC, shreds through Pure Fictions, shreds through Apocalyptic Shadow. The fact he can work as a main DPS and a sub DPS is just so good. He is just so fun to use and also a very flexible unit to use in other teams. So even at early investment, he was super strong and super fun to use. I actually had so much fun using him, and he was definitely my #1 character to use. And now with his E6, nothing comes close. I've never had more fun on this game. I did say the same thing when I did E6 S5 Aventurine. He was obviously my most fun ever character to use. And I think that slot actually has been dethroned. I think Anaxa E6 is way more fun than I had with Aventurine. Everything that I mentioned previously with the SFX, cool ultimate, cool numbers, just going crazy, implants, all that, and then damage that was already good being multiplied to living hell now and just deleting everything on my screen is so funny and so goddamn satisfying that I honestly don't know if I'm ever gonna get tired of it. It's just so satisfying. Every time I use a skill, it's just actual adrenaline shots. It's so goddamn fun. So yeah, that practically wraps it up for my first impressions. I think Anaxa at a early investment, so E0S1 and such, is super strong on its own. Tested in plenty, very perfect at E0S1. E0S0, definitely weaker, but still usable. Not saying he's weak by any means, he's still really strong at E0S0. I just don't really like using him at E0S0. And then early dupe investments, so E1, not that great. E2, definitely noticeable. And then when you go all the way up to E4, E6 mainly, is just insane. His damage potential just skyrockets. So, very happy. He is a great unit for anyone that is just stopping at E0S1. Even at E0S0, he'll perform great. If you're someone that likes him and you went for E2S1, you'll definitely like the benefits. And if you're one of the rare ones like me who went for E6, I'm sure you're having as much fun as I am, and you get what I mean by how satisfying it is just to watch everything melt. And the best part is, I've used him on, you know, less premium teams. Like, I've used him with someone like Sparkle, with him on attack boots, Ting Yun, actually running a sustain, so not running triple harmony support. Ran him with Jade. I've tried so many teams with him. I even ran him with Welt. And he's just so fun. No matter where I put him on, the team is always so fun. So, yeah, again, first impressions at every single level of testing. I think he's strong and insanely fun. But yeah, that's the video. If you guys got him, no matter what investment you do have him at, let me know how you guys think about using him. Are you guys having as much fun as I am? Feel free to discuss. Peace out.